24 goals, 3 red cards, 1 big celebration, and Leicester City officially relegated. Lots of action in the Premier League across the weekend, so let's discuss it right here on Tartan. And speaking of the channel, if you're new, please do subscribe and also drop a like on the video as well by clicking that thumbs up button. On last week's episode, we got 202 likes, so we could beat it this week. That would make me very happy. And I'd like to begin today's episode by looking at the action at the King Power as it finished Leicester City 0, Liverpool 1. And the reason I wanted to start there is because I think Leicester were robbed. That goal by Conor Coady should have stood. And I don't like the way it's been brushed aside. It's been completely overshadowed by the goal by Alexander-Arnold, his celebration, and his comments after the game as well. And I get it, and that's a huge talking point. I'm not saying don't discuss that. You absolutely should. It's massive. But so was that. Disallowing that goal was also massive. And the reason I think the discussion point as just, was a sweep under the carpet, the reason I don't think it's had more attention, not because it's Liverpool. I think there's an argument that the reason the referee gave the foul is because it's Liverpool. But why it's not been discussed, I don't think has anything to do with the team itself, but just because it's easy. The consequences of that game was quite small, let's be honest. Yes, Leicester officially got relegated. Liverpool now 1 win away from the title. But let's just say that goal stood, Leicester went on to win the game 1-0. They'd still get relegated. Liverpool would still win the title. Everything would have just been delayed by a week, and that's it. The consequences of that match, it's quite small. But that shouldn't mean it's acceptable. It isn't. If that was match day 38, Leicester had to win to stay in the Premier League. Liverpool had to win the title. That would be the biggest talking point of the weekend by a mile. And it still should be to some extent, in my opinion, because that is no way a free kick. Ball comes in, loose ball. Alisson is favourite to get it. Daka comes along, gives him a nudge. Not a push, a nudge. I'm not pretending there was no physical contact. There absolutely was. He flicks it. Conor Coady heads it into the back of an empty net. If that happened in the middle of the pitch, midfielders waiting for the ball to come down, opposition midfielder comes along, gives him a nudge, not a push, just a oof, out the way. That's just deemed standing your ground. It's a physical game. Get on with things. That's exactly what should have happened. But too easy, too quickly that referee blew up, gave the free kick. VAR took about 5 seconds to look at it and went, carry on. No idea why that goal was disallowed. It shouldn't have been. Fantastic goal by Alexander-Arnold. Celebration to give Liverpool fans hope and certainly trigger a debate as to whether he's staying or not. And then his speech after the game, I think basically said, nah, I'm off. Everybody's taken it as different ways, but that's how I took it. When he said, I'm not going to speak about my future, but these are special moments. I was like, oh, well, maybe he will stay. I'm still on the side that he's joining Real Madrid. But incredible goal, fantastic celebration. And that's what football's about. That is what football's about. Being in that away end, if you can, albeit put that contract situation to aside, but having a local lad score the winner in a game where Liverpool were not at their best and came out lucky to win that game, if I'm honest with you. If I'm a Leicester fan too, I'm thinking, where's that been all season? The last 2 games now, there's been a bit of fight, there's been a bit of entertainment, you've been unlucky not to score against Liverpool, scored 2 last weekend. And I'd be looking at Ruud van Nistelrooy saying, where's that been? Why have we waited this long to see Mavididi? Now, I'm not sure about Reed on the right. I think they're 1 player short away, 1 decision from Van Nistelrooy away from having possibly their strongest team out. But I thought Leicester made a good go of it against Liverpool yesterday. Anyway, that's them relegated. The inevitable has finally occurred. And I think the last couple of weeks has maybe given Leicester City fans hope that Van Nistelrooy could be their manager next season. Because up until then, you'd surely be looking, thinking he's got to go in the summer. That's not the guy to get us back up. But the last 2 weeks maybe suggested actually he can play good football. He can get us scoring goals. Maybe he can get us back up. I think jury's still out. I'm not a Leicester fan, I don't know. But I do feel like yesterday, they got mugged off with that disallowed goal. I wouldn't be happy about that. I don't even support Leicester. Anyway, let's go back to Saturday afternoon then. Brentford 4, Brighton 2. Wow, feels like I've missed a belter. I was expecting this game to be quite boring. But Pedro finally got what's coming to him. That guy should have been sent off 2 different occasions this season for swinging limbs at opposition players off the ball. Can't recall who it was against, that one where he swung his elbow quite violently behind him. Luckily for him, the opposition player had stopped, so he didn't hit him. But there's been, warning signs that this guy's willing to, get sent off for violent conduct, and he finally got it. I can't tell if he was sent off for elbowing him or kicking him. He did both, really. He swung his leg and his elbow. This was always coming, this red card, and it's not. He's a fantastic player, an absolute talented player, but my word, someone needs to get him to cut that side of his game out. There's players that are aggressive, and you think, oh, if you take that out of his game, you'll change the player. But those players tend to use it in a different way in terms of going into tackles quite crunchy and whatnot. Pedro's not that. He's just violent off the ball. Anyway, 2 goals and an assist for Mbeumo, and Wissa with a goal as well. Really good partnership, them two. It reminds me a little bit of like Son and Kane. Unsure why, it just does. But that first goal in particular, I think, is one of those underrated goals. Really good pass by Kane, Lewis Potter, but there's still a lot to do. But he gets into that position because of his good movement, good pace, but the finish with the inside of his weak foot across the goalkeeper, I like it. I rate that quite highly. What I don't rate is Brighton. They need to fix up. 5 games now without a win, and 8th place is just sat there waiting for the taking. Brighton are inconsistent, Fulham are inconsistent, and Bournemouth are inconsistent. Whichever 2 clubs miss out, they're really going to regret it. That if Crystal Palace fail to make the FA Cup final, it becomes Conference League football. 2 of them have chucked away a really good opportunity. It's just sat there. And I expect more from Brighton. They've got a really good squad of really good players. They've got strength and depth, and I think they've got more strength and depth than the other 2 in this race. But the performances just aren't there at the minute. They're one of those clubs, one of those teams that I just don't trust at the minute. But nevertheless, a really good performance and a result for Brentford. Just want to clarify, as per last week, I didn't watch this game. I was watching the West Ham game. Then I watched the Villa game, followed by the Ipswich game, and then the Leicester game. So the 4 games I've seen this weekend. I watched all the highlights from the other ones, but as discussed, I don't like it when journalists and pundits pretend they've watched every minute from every game. You hear them and you think, well, you're lying, aren't you? At Selhurst Park, it finished Crystal Palace 0, Bournemouth 0, and if Glasner has the hump about this one, I understand why. Sending Richards off for a second yellow card for a similar offence to what Alex Scott did, where he didn't get a second yellow card. It's difficult, and this is what fans want. I think, I can't speak for everyone, you can allow referees making incorrect calls to some extent, but what you can't do is accept referees being inconsistent. Had he sent both players off, you might go, oh, they were a bit harsh. However, at least he's treated both teams the same. On this occasion, I think it's fair to suggest that Bournemouth got away with one. And the worst thing is, it was the other way around. I think had he sent Richards off, then Alex Scott done a foul. But hey, ref, come on, you've got to send him off too. But the fact that Scott did his foul and he said, oh no, I'll let that go. What it does, it sends out a message, which is, well, I'm willing to sort of be quite lenient here. I don't want to produce a red card. So when Richards does his, hang on a minute, ref, you've just let him off for doing something similar. So I do think Richards is more of a yellow card than Scott's, but it's usually a yellow card, isn't it? Had Scott not been booked the first time, does he get a booking for that challenge on Sarr? I think he does. And when I watched the highlights of this game, I seen more fouls than shots. But saying that, Crystal Palace only had 5 shots. There wasn't much to write home about. One of those results that Palace isn't really playing for much, but I think they're trying to need to get a bit of momentum up for going to Wembley. 1 or 2 players perhaps not quite firing at the minute. Mateta, you can tell who signed Mateta on Fantasy League a few weeks ago. He's got 1 goal since I've had him, and he keeps getting subbed as well. Anyway, Palace really need to get a bit of momentum going before that trip to Wembley for the FA Cup semi-final. Bournemouth, as discussed, 8th is there. They just look tired. They do look like Areola has just rinsed everything out of them. Just, do you have a little bit more to get us over the finish line? Up at Goodison Park, it finished Everton 0, Manchester City 2. Now, I discovered something watching the highlights. I'm way to embarrass myself here, don't really care. I did not know Kovacic played for Inter Milan. So he scored, and it said, oh, first time Kovacic has scored in back-to-back games for however many years when he played for Inter Milan. Sorry, what? I had a look at the season. I was like, I watched that Inter Milan quite often. Why don't I remember it? I also remember him at Real Madrid and knew that he played for Zagreb and Chelsea. Did not know he played. Anyway, I discovered something new and something I should have known. But there you go. As for the goals itself, this one had action, whereas the Palace game didn't really have much saves from the goalkeepers. This one did. Good saves by Pickford, good saves by Ortega down at the end. Branthwaite should be scoring that little flicked header, though. O'Reilly looks like a good player, doesn't he? Now, I'm not judging that off the back of this, because all you've seen him do was score a goal. But whenever I've watched City and he's played, he looks like he's been there for a few seasons. Does that make sense? Got a goal yesterday, his 5th goal for Manchester City. And then Kovacic obviously got the goal as well. Now, I've read a lot from Man City fans saying they got away with that one. Not the only set of fans to say that this weekend either. So I'm not going to read too much into it. But Everton's form, it's funny, isn't it? They've only got 1 win in 8, but they've only got 2 defeats in 8. And this is where statistics depends on the story you want to tell. You want to play down Everton, you go, they've only won 1 in 8. But if you want to big up Everton, you go, they've only lost 2 in 8. Both are true. One's impressive, one's not so impressive. But Man City certainly are in form. And last week I was thinking I'm not sure about City get Champions League football, but the table's screaming out they're going to get Champions League football, and they have to. That's the bare minimum. At West Ham, it finished 1-1 with Southampton. It was a bad game of football, really. 2 teams that look like they're down the bottom of the table. Southampton deserved a point. I do have grumblings over the outcome from a West Ham perspective, but in terms of the deserved result, it was the right result for the game, I think. Good goal by Jared Bourne, a really good equaliser by Southampton. I don't wish to discuss it too much more. So let's move on to the game I was really looking forward to at the weekend, which was Aston Villa 4, Newcastle 1. A goal after 33 seconds. I'm sat there, I'm thinking, justified. Looking forward to this, justified already. Then there's an equaliser. Watkins hits the bar before the equaliser. He hits the post after the equaliser. Just an action-packed game from start to finish. I absolutely loved it. As I always say, it had me hooked. It didn't. It did until it went 3-1. Then that's when it felt a bit game over. Then the 4th goal came pretty quickly. But another weekend in a row where the substitutes come on and make a big difference for Aston Villa. And this is where these 2 teams are competing in similar positions in the league. I think they'll both get Champions League football. I stand by it. I think they'll both be in the top 5. But here's the difference. In January, Newcastle didn't strengthen. Aston Villa did. This game comes along. Ramsey comes off the bench, puts the cross in at least to the own goal. Onana scores an absolute belter. Whilst it wasn't a substitution, Matsson's come in after being a squad player for Aston Villa. And I appreciate he wasn't a January signing, but it shows the strength and depth at Villa Park. And I thought he had a fantastic game. He's someone I'm sort of looking forward to seeing next season. We have these, don't you? You watch teams, you watch players, you think he'll be good next season, he'll be good next season. Maatsen is one of those players I think will have an excellent season for Aston Villa next year. A huge result for them. A bad result for Newcastle, but you can put this down to a bad day at the office. There has to be reaction though. Newcastle need a reaction. They can't go 2-3 games without picking up a win. They've got to go on and get at least 4 points for the next 2 fixtures to keep that Champions League charge there. For Villa though, what's that, 11 wins in 12? Ridiculous form. You don't want to be playing Aston Villa at the minute. They've got what Crystal Palace do not have. They've got momentum going into the FA Cup semi-finals, and it's hard not to fancy them to go on and win it. We might get a bit of an indication when they play Manchester City in the league. But yeah, it's Villa. Villa look good at the minute. Sunday we got underway at Craven Cottage. Fulham got beat by Chelsea. Again, I've only seen the highlights, of course. Good finish by both of them, by George and by Neto as well. And the celebrations at the end looked like, I think, if I was a Chelsea fan, I find that reassuring. The players looked buzzing with that win. But again, I've read reviews from Chelsea fans suggesting they perhaps got away with one at Craven Cottage. So I've not really got too much to discuss other than what I've already said. Fulham need to shape up. Chelsea, huge win, big win, within a shout of Champions League football. And this race for Champions League football is looking really good. And the Premier League doesn't have much to offer between now and the end of the season, but this is something that's there. And there's going to be a lot more twists and turns yet. It's not done. Arsenal cruised, and they did. Cruised an easy 4-0 win against Ipswich. Naughty tackle by Davis on Saka. Red card all day, every day as far as I'm concerned. Nowhere near the ball. I don't like suggesting a player had no intention to win the ball, but when you see that, it's difficult to suggest he was trying to win it. The ball was never where his foot landed. Horrible tackle. It was just easy. And you could see the way that Arsenal didn't celebrate. Maybe it's because they're not playing for anything in the Premier League other than pride and just making sure they get second place. But I think there's an element of it didn't take too much to beat Ipswich. I felt a bit sad for Ipswich watching it. It was difficult when they had 11 men, but from the first whistle, there was just no contest whatsoever between these two teams. Good win, easy win for Arsenal. Wolves beat Man United. Again, obviously not watched it. Fantastic free kick from Sarabia. But this is one of those results that Man U fans just don't care about and they shouldn't care about. I said in the preview, who cares from a Man U perspective? You've just gone through a fantastic game of football against Lyon. You're into the semi-finals of Europa League. Rotated the side a little bit. I thought Amorim would have made more changes than he did. I believe Federico, the young centre-back, I believe he had a really good game. And that's good. This is what you can take as a Man U fan. Ignore the result and focus on the fact that him and Amas both played well. That gives you something going forward because that squad needs a rebuild, no doubt about it. Eriksen played. He's not going to be here next season. He shouldn't be there next season. But those two young lads could pick up valuable minutes between now and the end of the season, become an option for being in the squad next season. Wolves, 5 wins on the bounce now. Pereira putting himself in the conversation for manager of the season, to be honest with you. Came in when they were down the bottom and they're miles away from relegation now. They're only going in one direction between now and the end of the season. One of the form teams in the Premier League. So he went to Old Trafford, won. Then he went out in Wetherspoons afterwards, Pereira did. I absolutely love it. I love that story. In the modern game where there's quite a detachment between the fan base and football clubs, and I use everyone involved. The players, the managers, the coaches, they're quite distanced from the supporters. Not Pereira, he's in there. He's in Wetherspoons after games, having a beer with fans and stuff like that. That type of stuff gets you time. Wolves go on a losing run. The fans will rally behind Pereira and say, no, give him a bit longer. If you were to have a normal manager that doesn't do that, and Pereira, the patience with Pereira will be far greater because of how he interacts. He shows he cares about the club, he cares about the supporters, and that goes a long way in football. I can only refer back to Slaven Bilic at West Ham. I had a lot more patience for him than anyone else because he was likeable. I felt like he loved the club, he loved the fan base, he got it. And that goes a long way sometimes. And that's missing in the modern game of football. I like it. Well done, Wolves. Back to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Like I said, I'm just not buying the celebration. It was a good celebration. There's a lot of good images that come out of it from a Liverpool fan's perspective. And I actually feel a bit sorry for him. When an interviewer asked him about his future, and I get why they've done it, but in that game, when that goal happened, I think just enjoy the moment, enjoy the celebrations, let him enjoy it. And asking that question, you're putting him on the spot a little bit. And again, I understand why. But I don't know, I think sometimes maybe just let football be football. And that was one of those occasions. Anyway, action-packed tonight. We've got Spurs against Forest. I'm still going for a Forest win. It just screams of 1-0 Nottingham Forest. And they need it. Third all season. Now they're dropping down the table. They need 3 points. A draw is not enough for Nottingham Forest tonight. But I do think they'll get all 3. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. Get your comments in below. Let me know what you think of the Premier League over the weekend. Any talking points that you've got. Anything you noticed. Anything you want to discuss. It's a blank canvas underneath. Get involved. But please do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to Tartan Geo. And I may catch up with you tomorrow. I might do a double preview ahead of the 2 midweek games in the Premier League because plenty to play for.